Hey geometry students, today we're going to be learning about 30, 60, 90 triangles. This is the second type of special right triangle that we're going to learn about this year. So if you have not already opened up your notes, go ahead to your homework packet 16.3. There's a page for you to take notes on this, so that would be a good thing to do. Feel free to pause the video at any point in order to catch up with the notes or whatever example that you're writing down if this is going too fast. Also, feel free to re-watch segments or back things up if you didn't get it the first time around. Maybe watching it again would be helpful. Alright, here we go. So, our goal for today is to be able to find the missing sides of a 30, 60, 90 triangle in exact form, so meaning with the square roots, given any one of the sides. So remember, exact form means we don't want decimal answers. We want either whole numbers or answers with square roots in them. So here we go. First, I want to give you guys a quick reminder about how we deal with multiplying square roots. When you multiply a square root by itself, the square root goes away and that number is left. So for example, if I did the square root of 3 times the square root of 3, really, when we multiply square roots, we can just take those numbers and multiply them together under their own square root. So that gives us the square root of 9, since 3 times 3 is 9, which is 3. So really what we end up with is that square root symbol going away just because we multiplied it by itself. So root 3 times root 3 is 3. That's going to be important in this lesson. So then we have something like this where we have 4 root 3 times root 3. Remember, root 3 times root 3 from up here is 3. So we end up with just 4 times 3, which is 12. So that concept will also be important. And then when we see something like this where we have 4 root 3 times 2 root 3, I can rearrange this since it's multiplication. I can multiply things in any order that I want to. So we end up with, if I rearrange a little bit, 4 times 2 times root 3 times root 3. And remember from up here, root 3 times root 3 is just 3. So we end up with 4 times 2 is 8, right? So 8 times 3, which is 24. So that's a little bit about multiplying square roots. Okay, so here's the rules for a 30, 60, 90 triangle. There are 3 different size sides. We have the short leg, the long leg, and the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is 2 times the short leg, so it's just twice as long as the shortest side. The long leg is the short leg times the square root of 3. And the short leg, there are 2 ways to find the short leg. You can either take the long leg and divide by the square root of 3, or you can take the hypotenuse and divide by 2. It just depends on which one you're given. So if you have the long leg, this is the one you want to use. If you have the hypotenuse, this is the one you want to use. So here's kind of a visual representation of that. The short leg is always going to be the one that's across from the 30-degree angle. The long leg is always going to be across from the 60-degree angle. The hypotenuse is always across from the 90-degree angle. And the hypotenuse is always the longest side of all 3. So if the short leg is x, the hypotenuse is like 2x, it's twice as big. And the long leg is like x times the square root of 3. So now we're going to go over how we would find the missing side given any of the other sides. So if we're given the short leg, here's an example. This is the easiest of the scenarios because the short leg is the most important one. So in this case, we have the short leg is 8. This also may or may not be a homework problem. And then the hypotenuse is just 2 times the short leg, so 2 times 8, which is 16. The long leg is the square root of 3 times the short leg, so 8 times the square root of 3. Which we just leave as 8 root 3. And then we are all done with this problem. So here's another example given the short leg. So if the short leg is 2 root 3, The hypotenuse is 2 times the short leg, so we just take this and we multiply by 2. 2 times 2 root 3 is 4 root 3, since 2 times 2 is 4, and we can just leave it like that. There's our hypotenuse. And then the long leg is the square root of 3 times the short leg still. So we take our short leg, 2 root 3, we multiply that by root 3, and if we remember back to a couple slides ago when we talked about multiplying root 3 times root 3, you just get rid of the square root. So it's 2 times 3, which is 6. Okay, this is the second case given the hypotenuse. So if the hypotenuse is 8 this time, what we want to do is we want to find the short leg first. So if we don't have the short leg, that's the first thing we always have to do, find the short leg. So since we have the hypotenuse, we know that the short leg is twice as long as the hypotenuse is twice as long as the short leg. So we can just take the hypotenuse and divide by 2. So 8 divided by 2 is 4. So that tells us that our short leg is 4. Then we can use the short leg to find the long leg. So the long leg is root 3 times the short leg. So since the short leg was 4, it's just 4 times root 3. And we can just leave it like that. That's our exact form. Okay, so that's if we're given the hypotenuse, that's all we have to do. Okay, another example given the hypotenuse. If the hypotenuse was 6 root 3 instead, we do the same thing. We find the short leg first. So we have to take the hypotenuse and we have to divide it by 2. So 6 root 3 divided by 2 is 3 root 3 because we just divide these two numbers. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 3 root 3 is what we get. And you can divide that in a calculator if you need to. Okay. And then the long leg is going to be root 3 times the short leg. So now that we have the short leg, we can use that to find the long leg. 3 root 3 times root 3. So root 3 times root 3, if we remember back to a couple slides ago, was just 3. So we end up with 3 times 3, which is 9. So that's going to be our long leg right there. So remember, we're always finding the short leg first. Okay, the last case is going to be if we're given the long leg. So let's say the long leg is 4. Again, we're finding the short leg first. If you don't have the short leg, you need it. Because the short leg is kind of like the translator. It helps us get to any of the sides. If you have the short leg, you can find the other two sides. But if you don't have the short leg, you can't. So if the long leg is 4, the short leg is the long leg divided by the square root of 3. So we can just write this as 4 divided by root 3. We could leave our answer like this, and that's perfectly okay. But yesterday in class we did talk about rationalizing the denominator. So if you type 4 divided by root 3 into your calculator, it's going to spit out 4 root 3 over 3. And that's just another way that we can write the answer. Here's the step that we would take if we wanted to rationalize the denominator by hand. You would multiply by root 3 over root 3. You don't have to do this step in this class, but it is helpful because in Advanced Algebra Trig, they will want you to write your answers like this. So I'm okay with you writing your answer like this or like this. It doesn't matter to me. So you can have either one of those. Then to find the hypotenuse, now that we have the short leg, we just take that and multiply by 2. So we have two options here. If we wrote our answer like this, we can just go 2 times 4 over root 3. So we multiply the top two numbers and we get 8 over root 3. And we can just leave our answer like that. Or if you rationalized the denominator, you can do the same thing, multiply those two, and get 8 root 3 over 3. So again, either writing your answer this way or this way doesn't matter to me. If it makes more sense to just divide by root 3 and be done, then do that. So you can write your answer either way here. Okay, so our last example for given the long leg is 6 root 3. We want to still find the short leg first. The short leg is the long leg divided by root 3. So if we have 6 root 3 for our long leg and we divide by root 3, when we have a fraction with something on the top and the same thing on the bottom, they just cancel, and we're left with 6. So that's going to be our short leg. Then the hypotenuse is 2 times the short leg, so we just take the short leg, which is 6, times 2, that gives us 12. So that's our hypotenuse. And then we're all done with that problem. Okay, so did we meet our learning targets? Can you find the 2 missing sides if we're just given the short leg? How about if we're given the hypotenuse? Or if we're given the long leg? Go ahead and try these problems. The Edpuzzle is going to ask about them on the next set of questions. Go ahead and give them a try. They, hint hint, might also be on your homework. So when you turn the page on your notes, your homework is on the back. So these problems will also be on there. So go ahead and fill in the answers there as well. And hopefully this video was helpful. I'll be back in class for you guys on Monday. So if you have any questions, make sure you ask then. And have a great weekend.